Hello, hello. This is Nancy Juetten, and I am the host of the Learn More, Earn More show. And today's show is about story magic. And the guest that I was going to be speaking about story magic is none other than the amazing and incomparable Sharla Jacobs. Sharla, so good to have you here.
Oh my gosh, Nancy, I'm so honored and so delighted to be on your show. Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. I think we met maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and we've been in each other's circles, but it's just been in the last year or two that we've really kind of come into each other's intersection. And it's just been such a rewarding, wonderful journey. Now, not everybody's known you for as long as I have, so let me tell people a little bit about you so they know what the fuss is about. Sharla Jacobs and her husband, Jesse Corin, have taught over 150,000 coaches and holistic practitioners to magnetize high-paying clients through their transformational heart-selling system. While they've earned $30 million in sales over the decades, their greatest win is the $500 million that Thrive Academy members have earned. Many of today's transformational leaders manifested their first $10,000 months after working with Jesse and Charlotte. At the heart of their teachings lies the holistic wisdom of the five elements, which Sharla discovered during her healing journey and training to become an acupuncturist. Her deep connection with these five elements evolved during the 3-month silent stay at a Zen monastery following an abusive relationship and a rough period of financial scarcity. Sharla transcended those struggles to manifest a divine partnership, build a joyful family, and become unstoppable in co-creating the inspired tools and templates that empower Thrive Academy members to create $10,000 revenue months while aligning with their values. You're kind of a rock star. I'm really glad you're here.
You're the best, seriously, Nancy. You're such a champion for people, and just being in your presence, I know that anyone who gets the opportunity to spend any time with you gets lifted up, and just really, what a cheerleader you are, and what a champion for people. So
Well, it's my
I shine
pleasure.
better in your presence.
Well, before we start talking about story magic, I think it might be interesting for people to hear a little bit about your own story. There's something about a bartender in a Buddhist monastery. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that sounds kind of like a joke, right? Like a bartender walks into a Buddhist monastery, what happens next? So yeah, I'm happy to share my own story. And I'm super blessed. I have an amazing life. I work with my husband, Jesse Corin. He's my business partner and the love of my life. We have two brilliant homeschooled boys that I adore, Jacob and Zachary. And Jake's almost 16, Zach's 13, and they work in the business here. And, as you said, we've now taught over 150,000 coaches and holistic practitioners our heart selling system for how to attract more clients. But it wasn't always this way. I grew up with a single mom in Orange County, and she worked 3 jobs to make ends meet. I got straight A's and was captain of my high school dance team. But, to be honest, growing up, the house was full of plenty of adult parties with drugs and alcohol. I remember being, probably 8 years old and going and getting the rolling papers for somebody at the party. And that led me to making some pretty bad choices as an unsupervised teenager. And without getting into all the details of some of the trouble that I got into, let's just say that my self-esteem was so low that by the time I graduated from college, moved to San Francisco and found myself in an abusive relationship where I was like trapped, alone, isolated from friends and family. And I lost almost everything I owned, including almost losing my life at one point.
Oh my goodness.
You know, and one day after a particularly bad fight, I remember sitting in the closet in the apartment on the brown shag carpet and like seething with anger. And then I had this thought that really changed everything for me. It was, he can take away everything, but he can't take away my fire.
Mm.
And it took all the courage that I had to leave. I moved in with my dad in Palm Springs. And that began my healing journey, not just from that relationship, but from all the pain that I carried inside. And I started sampling different holistic healing methods that were outside of the mainstream. And that journey led me to acupuncture school, eventually to coaching. And I even took, while I was in my acupuncture studies as a master's program, a 3-year master's program, while I was in my studies, I decided, like I was suffering so badly that I decided to go live at a Zen monastery in silence as a monk. And, I could tell stories and stories about the inner world experience of that, but, people would say, oh, you're going to be so enlightened. It's going to be magical. And it was one of the most difficult periods of my life, probably even more difficult than being in the abusive relationship because of, how much was going on in my own head. So I go back to acupuncture school. I get my license, my coach certification. I'm $85,000 in student loan debt. And I thought it would be easy to fill my practice. I was excited. I had found my gifts. I had done a lot of healing. I was ready to go. Like I was hooked and, hooked on personal development, all of those things. And, but it wasn't easy to fill my practice. And so each month I was going deeper and deeper into debt. I was putting groceries on credit cards. I was thinking I was going to have to go back to bartending to pay the bills. And one day I met a business coach and he told me if I followed this system that within 90 days I would be making $5,000 a month. And we charged $600 a month at the time. I knew this was my next step. So I started working with him. I actually had to borrow the money from Jesse. He was just my boyfriend at the time. And the assignment in order to guarantee I was going to earn that much money was to have 100 sales conversations per week. Can you imagine having 100 sales conversations per week? And this is before social media. This is like you had to go out. Like I had to go to events almost every day here in Santa Cruz to meet people, the rubber chicken networking events, the real estate events. Like, are these my people? I'm trying to sell transformation and I'm in a group of like business people feeling like I'm the youngest person in the room. I was so insecure. It was so hard. And so I forced myself to show up, one event after another. And it seriously was like a nightmare. The conversations went pretty badly at first. I wondered if I was damaged goods, so confusing. Found my gifts. I found the thing I was supposed to do. The universe had given me the path, the vision, and I couldn't make it work. And 480 horrible conversations later, I'd only increased my income by maybe like 500 per month. And seriously, you talk about being in tears every day, hiding under the covers. But something inside me, there's like a resolve of like, I'm not going to give up. And I asked myself this crazy question one day, and it was, what if the 5 elements that I had studied in acupuncture school, like my love of the 5 elements, what if those were present in a sales conversation? And that changed everything.
So what are the 5 elements?
Yeah, we have fire, earth, metal, water, wood. That was really fast, but we can talk briefly about those. But these are the energies that we hold when we're in a conversation with honestly anyone, but specifically in a conversation with a potential referral partner, potential JV partner, potential client, potential speaking gig host, any kind of conversation you're going to have for business, we have to have all 5 elements present. And so fire is connect, earth is serve, metal is acknowledge, water is be curious, and wood is give them a choice. And if we were able to do a deep dive on all of these, I mean, I could spend days talking about them. There are places where each of us has an element that is our constitutional place. We fall out of balance. And we have, just like any typing system, right? We have different wings and things that are related to it. And so whenever I teach the 5 elements and I go in depth with those, most coaches, holistic practitioners, healer types will find in themselves a place where they are going out of balance, either in the sales box or the heart box, like too much or not enough of that element. And then they can course correct and use those in the conversation to be present in the right energies when talking to people. We need all 5 of them. You can't miss any one of them. So anyways, I started.
So let me just ask you this.
Yeah.
So you were having sales conversations and they weren't being particularly fruitful. You have this aha, what if the 5 elements could play a role? And then you start implementing your own understanding of the 5 elements in the depths of your despair. What happened next?
I found, I used it as a diagnostic tool for myself. Like I could assess how the conversation went. I mean, the first thing was these are the 5 elements. How do those show up in sales? Jesse and I developed that system together. It's simple, but deep and profound. And then I started using it, and I would walk away and evaluate my conversations for myself and be like, oh, that didn't go well because I was missing the metal element. That didn't go well because I was missing wood. And so it gave me a tool to use, to like a very simple, easy framework to use to understand how I wasn't showing up at my best in these conversations. And here's what happened. I started getting yeses. And I found that if the conversation went well, all 5 elements were present. And if it didn't go well, at least one was missing. And so, I actually built in that last 30 days when I started using the 5 elements, I had a $5,400 month. Now, this is back in like 2002, 2003. And so that changed everything for me. I went from 1,800 a month to 5,400 a month. Let's add inflation, and we can call that a lot more than it was, right? And then Jesse and I had some coach and holistic practitioner friends who asked how we were doing it. So we started teaching this model we were using. He knew he had actually mastered what we call heart selling, the 5 elements of heart selling, when he got like 18 new clients in 1 month. And we started teaching it, and we developed this live event. We now call it the Client Attraction Summit. We now led that event 95 times. People loved it so much they referred their friends. That was over 20 years ago. And, and by the way, I just have to say this because I don't want anybody to panic. We would never ask you to have 100 sales conversations a week. That's absolutely crazy. As a matter of fact, we see a lot of our members who are talking to 3 potential clients a month and easily having $10,000 months. So, our members have earned $500 million collectively, and many of them are using, it's because of hard selling. At least it's such a foundational thread of how you need to be getting your work out there and talking with people. It's one of many skills that we need to stack.
So let me ask you another question that's sort of a corollary to that. Those holistic practitioners and coaches that are having 3 quality conversations a month where they're hitting on all 5 of the elements and being fully present with all of them, they're having great outcomes. But underneath all that, they also have, I'm imagining, high value offers that are dialed in that they're very confident around. Is that true?
100%. I will say this, that so many coaches and holistic practitioners and entrepreneurs and healers, I know you have a broader audience than, we usually work with coaches and holistic practitioners, but many people, when they get into business, they have no idea of how many skills they need to stack in order to start seeing results. And part of the journey is developing a high value offer and packaging it up in a way that is appealing, that is compelling, that your ideal clients are like, oh my gosh, I need that. Wow, that is the answer. And there's a lot of confidence that goes along with that, right? So there's like this upward spiral that can happen as you learn the skills, you stack the skills, you gain mastery with the skills, and you put all of these pieces into place to make the business work. Your confidence grows. On the flip side, if you're missing, so sometimes people don't even know what skills they're missing, and they're spinning their wheels and they're feeling so frustrated. That's what it was like for me. And they're waiting to get lucky, or they're waiting, they're waiting instead of intentionally developing these skills. Now, one of the skills we're going to talk about today is creating a story that attracts clients. It is one of the skills that you've got to be masterful at, just like hard selling, just like packaging your services.
Well, let's talk about story magic. Let's go. Let's start with this question. In an age of artificial intelligence where people are bombarded with endless noise and bland content that gets ignored, how can any of us stand out as unique and authentic?
I love storytelling because it is the thing that is going to be unique about you. It's the thing nobody else can touch. And if we are not careful, I mean, we can go into AI and, AI will actually pull content from other people. It won't sound like you. But if you are telling your story and you're telling a compelling story that's actually crafted for your ideal client, I didn't say fabricated. I want to make sure that's really clear. We are crafting a story that is written for your ideal client. It's your story, but it's intentionally crafted in a way, following a very simple framework that has your ideal client lean in. It has them want to work with you. It has them get bonded to you emotionally because they connect with you as a human. And Nancy, you and I did some work recently on my media one sheet, and I can hear your voice in my head, like, repeating some of these things that I'm saying about really being able to bond with people through our stories and through who we are as a human. AI can never do that. It's going to get better. The copywriting is going to get better. We're at a stage right now where it's not cutting the, it's not cutting it. But with our story, if we can really craft it it does take time. We have to know how to do it well. If we can craft it, we can really make a difference, not just for our potential clients, but also for ourselves in the process of crafting that. Gives us an opportunity to actually redefine those most vulnerable moments, those traumatic moments. It gives us it's a healing process to actually, like healing and empowering, to actually redefine things that happen to us in a way that is empowering and that can inspire other people.
Well, to that point, just a few moments ago, you were talking about the bartender that walks into a Zen monastery and has a reawakening of what's possible. But you also demonstrated that there was a dark night of the soul. Here you are, this very successful person who's touched and transformed the lives of thousands of people over the last 20 years. But when it all started, you were just like the rest of the people that you are working with, and you overcame that through a very specific method that has proven to be very reliable and proven for thousands and thousands of people. So that was a perfect example of story magic, where you were sharing something very vulnerable, because sometimes people will share vulnerable stories but not be purposeful or strategic about how they do it. And so what do you have to say about that? Oversharing for the purpose of oversharing, or not, or sharing just the right amount of information to support the objective that you have. I mean, anything you want to say about that?
100%. Well, listen, when you are in a dark night of the soul about anything, right? Because we have challenges. Humans, we live in challenge. We live to overcome challenge. When you're in it, that's not the time to share. I mean, if you just want to be a regular human on social media and you want to share those difficult things, that's fine. But if you are showing up on social, you're showing up in conversation, we choose to step into transformational leadership. And if that's the choice you're making, you're here to change people's lives and you're here to be a mentor and a leader for your people, then you don't share your dark night of the soul when you're in it. You don't share the vulnerable moment that you're in. You work through that with your own coach, with your own healers, with your partner, friend, whoever it is that you work through that. You come out on the other side, and then you can share the insight and the lesson.
I've heard that spoken. We teach from our scars and not from our scabs. Have you heard that?
Yeah, that's great. I have not heard that before, but I think that's a perfect way of saying it.
I know when I was undergoing a health issue of my own, I was very reticent about sharing anything about it with social media or even people that were not among my closest family and friends. But when I came out on the other side of it and I felt that I had gotten the lesson from whatever that experience was, I could be loud and proud about it and not be stuck in victimhood or anything like that. And I think that that was a big shift for me, because it allowed people to see me in a more complete way, which either is attractive or repelling. Either way, it's fine, but right?
I cried when I heard your story about your journey. I actually did not know. I hadn't seen you in years, right? And we're at a live event together. You're on stage, we're speaking later. We were very happy to see each other, delightful to see each other. And then you shared it, and I think you were only on stage for like 12 or 15 minutes. And I cried. I had no idea you had been through that. I feel emotional even thinking about it. It so moved me. It had me love you more. Like I always thought you were wonderful, but it had me fall in love with you in a new way. That's the power of story. And, as you're talking about this and you said, we're no longer in a space of victimhood. When we tell our stories, when we actually craft our transformational stories, there are 3 levels of transformation. You can transform your potential client from lack of hope to possibility. You can transform your bank account, obviously, and you can transform yourself. Because when we start to look at our lives and the experiences that we've had, especially the really difficult things in our lives, we can start to redefine those and find the gifts in them by developing the story. So if we look for the lessons and the gifts in the story, we no longer feel victimized or powerless. And then when we redefine how the story lives, it's like, you can look at how those experiences shaped your values. You can tell your stories in a way that motivated you to change. You can tell your stories in a way to help others shift, like that they actually transform as they're hearing it. And a lot of times these stories that we have of like the most difficult times and moments in our lives that we're going to tell as a transformational leader is it led us to some big insight that is like the moral of the story for the people listening, right? So we discover what our true values are. We move from healing and empowerment, and that's really stepping into transformational leadership. And I'll just, hey, we live in polarized times right now, but and we can get caught up in that and get really frustrated and feel victimized by it, or we can step up into transformational leadership and step into our mission of changing other people's lives. To me, I would rather step into the best version of myself, step into my future self. And that creates happiness and fulfillment for me when I know I'm serving and making a difference for other people. And so we can actually create transformation in all of our marketing by sharing these stories. And, there are different types of stories crafted with intention. They're written for your ideal client, and they draw in those who resonate with the message. So
to that end,
yeah.
There are core stories that you must develop if you want a thriving and successful business as a coach or a holistic practitioner. Can you name and claim what they are, the core stories?
Yes, I can. So we've got our hero's journey story. That's what we call it here at Thrive. You could also call it an origin story. That's got a very simple framework. Sometimes, we named it Hero's Journey story a long time ago. And if you think of the very complex Joseph Campbell version, that is wonderful and beautiful, but that can blow people out and it might take you a year to develop that story. The very simple story of how you got started. You share your credibility so people are not feeling sorry for you right before you go into your low point. Then you share your turning point and your high point. And when we can make this little hat, that's a really powerful story you need to develop. There are details into how to make that story most compelling. What details do you choose? What turning point do you choose? You're not going to tell the whole story, but that's the simple framework. And when you can do that, that's really powerful. And then we have success stories. We also want to help our clients tell stories of how they've had success with us using that same kind of framework. And so we can tell those stories over and over again. We have thousands of success stories here at Thrive Academy. And, we've been doing this for 20 years. So that's kind of the way that goes. You start collecting those immediately and you use this formula and help to develop these stories. It's really interesting and unique to share not just a testimonial of what someone said about you, but actually their journey of transformation through this framework. And then the last story, types of stories are conversion stories. And you tell these when you are looking at what are the blocks that are in the way for people to stepping into their yes to themselves first. This is not, how do I say this? A lot of times in some of the old school manipulative sales tactics that are out there, there's this like sell them no matter what, manipulate them, overcome their objections, close the sale. And it's really dehumanizing. And most people who are heart-based coaches, practitioners, entrepreneurs, they can't do that. Not asking you to do that. What I am asking you to do is say, okay, the yes is the first yes is to themselves. The second yes is to your offering. And so we ask ourselves, what are the blocks that are in the way to them saying yes to themselves and getting what they want and going for the things they want? And if they are having a money conversation about why they can't work with you, that money conversation is also blocking them from having, going towards what they want. So we actually have these conversion stories in service to them having the transformation that they want to have, for them having the growth. A lot of times the same blocks that are in the way of them saying yes to your offering are the same blocks that are in the way of them saying yes to themselves and really going for what they like, even like they can't even get that it's possible for themselves because of this thing, time, money, partner, whatever the thing is, right?
So is it fair to say that some of these coaches and healing practitioners are struggling with those very issues themselves, and that is standing in the way of them welcoming the big outcomes that they are dreaming of for their clients?
I love that you said that, because when we actually have to define our own stories, like craft our own stories, we have to go look for the gifts in our own experiences. And that's why we call a lot of what we do here transformational marketing, because we're not only transforming, we're not only here to transform other people in the process of the work that we do when they pay us, but the experience of them even consuming our free stuff or having a conversation with us, that is also transformational for them. And so, and it's transformational for us as we define our stories. So if you need to develop a story around when money got in your way and you found a way to get through that, to go for what was really important to you, for what you really valued, for what really mattered, and you found a way, when you can develop that story, that conversion story, you redefine what happened for yourself. So it's healing for you.
So that leads me to just a reflection. There's a gentleman that you and I both know. His name is Jeffrey Van Dyke. And one time I was having a conversation with him years ago, and he named and claimed something for me that was clearly a block. And then I had this long pause, oh my gosh, kind of moment. And then he said, and this is a direct quote from him, he said, out of your deepest wound in life calls forth your greatest gift to share. And it stopped my heart because I think it was just so powerfully stated. And I think that that is a lot of what it is that is true for so many coaches and holistic practitioners. They haven't gotten to the meat of the matter of that one thing, that deep wound that's been stopping them from stepping over it to become fully expressed and of service. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to Jeffrey Van Dyke, because sometimes a phrase hits you straight between the eyes and you never forget it. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah, Jeffrey's a profound coach, an amazing human being. I love him dearly.
Well, and I
Seriously.
remember saying to him, does this, there was a TV show way back in the day, Columbo. There was this kind of guy that wore this, he wore this trench coat and he was all ruffled and didn't look very polished, but he always got to the bottom of it. So I kind of looked at him like I was Columbo and I said, does this work for everybody? He says, every time, every time. And it was like, oh my gosh, like he gave me the keys to the kingdom. Okay, so we've covered the 5 elements, powerful. We've covered the 3 core stories that you must develop if you want a thriving and successful coaching business. Now, let's talk a little bit, the 3 crucial questions to ensure that we share the right stories at the right times. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it's quite a process, but I want to get everybody started. So 3 questions you can ask yourselves. What are the biggest changes I've made in my life that are relevant to my work? Like what biggest changes have you made in your life or have occurred for you? Sometimes we just get these downloads, right? What are the key turning point moments that led to the outcome? So let's say whatever it is you do, let's say you are helping, there's this amazing Instagram influencer that I'm following who is a coach for teens. I think she calls herself the Teen Whisperer. I have teenage boys and, we're in new territory. We're learning some things here as parents. And so, that outcome that she has is about how to be a better, kinder, compassionate parent who sets your children up for success. And so if she, say that was your niche and that's who you're working with, and you've got an outcome of like empowered, you know, kids in their 20s, then what were the key turning point moments that led to that? Now, the hard thing is we've all had a lot of turning point moments, right? But when you watch a Hollywood movie, there's a reason why they're so popular. They follow this formula, this framework I'm talking about, and they don't like you have gaps in the story, right? Where you skip from one thing to another. So we're going to do that in our stories. We're not going to tell the whole thing. It's one of the most difficult experiences I've found when I'm crafting a new story. How do I tell it in a way where I'm not putting in too much detail, but I'm putting in the right details and the right emotion? For me personally, my brain is like a pinball machine. It moves really, really quickly. In an organic conversation, I often will not finish sentences. And so I've had to train myself to slow down, take a breath, and I have a huge capacity for detail, but I can't write a story with all the details. I have to rein myself in and really step back and look at what are the important details, what are the important things that I felt. And then here's another question, and it speaks to something we were talking about earlier, and that is, what vulnerable moments would my ideal client relate to, but and not only relate to, but be feeling right now? So if we go back to my story I told earlier, I talk about there's the elation of finding your gifts and going out in the world and like claiming, this is the thing I'm going to do with my life. Like, I found coaching, I found acupuncture. Oh my gosh, I finally found my life purpose. I'm so grateful to go do work that like changes lives and fulfills me and makes me so happy. And then, oh my gosh, filling a business with clients is not what I thought it was going to be. And, those moments, there were many moments of crying under the covers, but I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling, or the feeling of like, oh my gosh, am I going to have to go back to a job I hate? A lot of things I could share that were the really tough, dark night of the soul moments of that part of my journey. But I very specifically choose to use those vulnerable moments that are most relevant for my people.
Well, and in your case, the biggest changes in life that you had this dark moment of the soul where you were $85,000 in debt and really struggling to attract clients. You applied the 5 elements very systematically and realized how powerful they were. You found your way to creating very meaningful income for yourself. But over the last 20 years, you've touched and transformed the lives of thousands and thousands of coaches who are now using those same systems to create collectively $500,000 in revenue and more, and great success stories where these people are totally empowered. So, and so what is your client feeling? When you tell that story, well, I'm kind of where Sharla might be when she had her $85,000 worth of student debt and couldn't sell a client to save her life. I believe that she can help me because after 20 years, she's helped so many people. The credibility is absolutely crystal clear. So, I mean, you're walking your own talk, and I think it's very compelling. And so I'm pretty darn sure that people who are watching today or listening today are going to wonder, gee, I want to get more masterful with my story magic. Do you have something that you can offer to folks who are watching or listening so they can become more masterful in this way? What is it and how can I get it? How can they get
100%.
it?
Yes, I do. And I'm very excited to tell you about that. But I want to say a yes and to something that you just said, because what I could see happening is if you're listening and you're comparing your story to mine, and I've got 20 years and, I've taught our Heart Selling System 150,000 people, you might think, I could never do this. I don't have anything to share. I don't have credibility. Well, I'll tell you that one of the first things that you need to do is define your credibility. And I was able to tell my story of only being a couple of steps ahead when I was just in practice a couple of years. It wasn't like I started, just so you know, I didn't start out as a business coach. I never intended to be a business coach. It's kind of an accident. But I had a lot of personal development, strength of character because of living in the monastery. So your turning point moments and your stories will evolve as you do. And I'm talking about credibility, in the beginning, like Jesse and I, after we had been together working in the business together for just a year, we went from 0 to 175,000 in a brand new business. So that was the thing we talked about for years. I talk about that every once in a while. It's not the, the evolution of our story is shifted. And so I want you listening to know that you have something inside of you. And sometimes it's so, it's so in your face that you need someone to pull that out of you. You need to ask these questions. You need to stop doubting yourself and beating yourself up over what you don't have and where you're not. And actually try to look at yourself objectively of like, wow, what did happen in my life? Where can I give myself credit? Where do I have credibility? Where am I a few steps beyond my ideal client that I can share those moments? It's really, really important because we do want to start with that credibility piece. And, one of the things that happens for people is they know what to do. So now you've got to create a story, but how do you do it? And so I wanted to provide a resource for everybody here to take you on the next step of the journey of the template. What do you plug in? It gives you a first draft by you plugging in your specific and unique pieces and having to ask some of these questions. And so we have a resource for you that it's about how to craft your hero's journey story. And you can go ahead and get it at giftfromthrive.com/NJ story, like Nancy Juetten story. I want to know that we met here. So NJ story/NJ story. And you can go ahead and put in your name and email address and get access to that guide in a heartbeat to get you started.
And when you do the work to craft your story, you just might have an aha moment that could light the way for you to do the same for others. Right?
100%. It is the process of crafting the story. It is an empowering and healing journey, 100%. And, and we have different stages of it. So even parts of the story I'm telling now, I'll be vulnerable, transparent moment for me over here. I wasn't telling those deeper parts of the story. It's just been in the last year. And part of that was, honestly, when I made the decision to work with you, Nancy, to do my Media One sheet, and it was so deep and so profound and so wonderful. The space you hold and the product that I got out of it was amazing. But in the process of deciding that, it was like certain things opened up for me and that had me go deeper with my story, places I hadn't gone before. Stepping back, I wasn't willing to ever share that I had been in an abusive relationship. I just wasn't ready to share that. Been doing this for 19 years. And something in me shifted that allowed me to be willing to share that now. And so I'm telling the deeper truth of why I care so much about healing and empowerment work. So thank you for supporting.
Thank you. It was a privilege to be at the feet of this unfolding. And I would say that there's something I wanted to say about what you just said is it's really a privilege to be present to people coming into their own. And sometimes you have to ask yourself, what is the conversation I most want to lead right now? And how can I do the best and highest good? And maybe you found yourself talking about the same things in the same ways for a very long time. And maybe you feel a little bit bored with the message. That happens sometimes. If you find yourself in that situation, it's time to go a level deeper. Go a level deeper because there's more there. And I would just offer that, this health issue that I was contending with, I think before that happened to me, I was always tending to everybody else's needs and trying to keep it professional and trying to keep a boundary around whatever it was I was willing to say or be or do. And coming through a tough time, I just had to be unbridled and authentic and real in a way that perhaps I never had before. And I'm offering this to y'all today because there's great power that comes from stepping into your true story and why you do this thing that you do and why you can't wait to do it more. And if you unpeel the onion a little bit and you get to the heart of it, people will connect with you at a level that they've never connected with people before. It will transcend so much of the other mishigosh and noise that we have to contend with, so you can get with the right people at the right time. Now, I want to say one other thing. You mentioned the Client Attraction Summit that you've done. Did you say 94 times?
95 times at this point.
That is a formidable and impressive, consistent path towards service contribution and profitability. And so is it fair to say that when people download the gift from Thrive to learn to story magic, they will subsequently get an invitation to be part of that?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I want to encourage all of you to actually use your real and your best email address. We send out so much valuable content. I mean, we have a comprehensive business academy where we cover all of the skills that you need, and we have such a commitment to send out really valuable content to our online community, including those who've subscribed to get emails from us. And so, yes, you will get an invitation to the Client Attraction Summit. You will get an invitation to tons of great free content, lots of resources and templates to help you start on your journey. And then for those that want to continue, we invite you to join us at the Client Attraction Summit. Spend 3 days with us and go deep in some of, like, get that full picture of all of the skills that you need to go deep with. And we will go through those, so you will have a very clear path to what is it that I need to learn in order to attract clients without struggle, to have that process be something that I can actually count on consistently, as opposed to the hope and pray method of marketing, which most people do, is just kind of waiting around and not understanding why it's not working. I'd rather
the hope and
certainty.
pray method. I haven't heard that one before, but I like it a lot. There is an antidote to that. It's called Thrive Academy with Jesse Corn and Sharla Jacobs. Sharla, it's been such a delight to have you with me today on the Learn More, Earn More show. Again, the link to visit to go deeper and get into your story magic is giftfromthrive.com/NJ story. I will put that in the show notes. If you are not yet a subscriber to the Learn More, Earn More show, why don't you hit that red subscribe button and say yes, so that you can be first to hear these kinds of interviews from world-class icons of influence that have your success in mind. Is there any parting thought you'd like to share before we sign off for now, Charlotte?
Yeah, thank you for asking first. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And for those of you, as you're here listening, your role as a transformational leader is to inspire hope and possibility in people, and know that what they want is possible for them. So many people are running around feeling like they can't have the life that they want. And whatever area of life or business that you help people in, that's your job in your marketing, in anything that you do, in the conversations you have, is to have people, climb that emotional ladder so they feel more hope, more possibility, more inspired, more like, yes, I can actually have it, and I am motivated to make a change. And this is our movement to heal the world together. Is that as we, you work with people individually or in your programs, however it is, you change their lives. They become more open, empathetic, compassionate human beings as they go through their own journey in order to get the results they want. And that is like a grassroots movement of making this world a better place. So thank you for being my partner in transformation, in changing people's lives and creating more happiness and fulfillment. And I wish that as you do your own work to reach more of your people, you also get that transformation within yourself. More confidence, more joy, more happiness.
Well, that, my friend, was a mic drop moment. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for watching and listening. If you got value, go ahead and share this with as many people as you can, because the coaches and holistic practitioners that are looking for transformation in themselves and others have now just met the person who's part of the team that can make it happen and to heal the world. And I think, given what we're dealing with in the world right now, seems pretty darn timely. So with that, I say thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you for the next amazing Learn More, Earn More show that'll be coming to you very soon. This is Nancy Juetten signing off for now. Thank you, Charlotte.